But like a lot of things in life, I think that if you listen carefully to your soul, that things come out the way they're supposed to. As I was finishing up college and I sitting in my dormitory one night, I turned on the television and there was John F. Kennedy talking about ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I was one of the first people to sign up for the Peace Corps. And shortly before going to Nigeria, I got another invitation from my government to do my very first tour to a very beautiful country in Southeast Asia. And that was my Vietnam experience. And that changed my life. I went over as a 22-year-old second lieutenant, and I had a platoon of about 100 men along the demilitarized zone. And when I was there, I remember sloshing through the jungles of Vietnam and the rice paddies and saying to myself at 22, whatever I do the rest of my life, it better make sense. It had to be something special. And I finished up my tour of duty in the Marines and had a big decision about going into corporate America with job offers from pharmaceutical companies and oil companies. And I said, no, I want to think about this for a while. And I went to Europe with the money I had saved from Vietnam and landed in London, bought a 10-speed bicycle, and thus began almost a one-year odyssey, a journey across Europe, visiting about 17 countries, never knowing exactly what my destination was that day, sort of feeling my way along. And I promise you that every time I saw an American tour group and I heard that American twang, I went running off in the opposite direction. I mean, if somebody told me I was going to be a tour guide the next year, I would have said, you are crazy. I would never travel with all those people and the bags in the hallway by 7 o'clock. You know, I travel independently. I would never be on a tour. And when I finished up that wonderful trip in Greece, where my grandfather was born, and I came home and I was hopelessly bitten by the travel bug. And again, like life has been so kind to me, I was at the right place at the right time, and a lady who felt sorry for me asked me whether or not I'd had any leadership experience. This was the Continental Trailways bus office in San Francisco. And I said, to tell you the truth, I pulled out my Eagle Scout badge, and she was impressed with that. I think that Eagle Scout badge has got me further in life than any of my college degrees. Anyway, my first trip was to a place called Death Valley, California, and kind of strange going from Vietnam to Death Valley, but I asked the lady, I said, what do I do? And she says, well, don't worry about it. She said, I'll train you. And I said, I really believe in training. That's wonderful. And I remember that weekend we took off with a group of people about the same age as my grandparents. I remember she said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Ted Bravos. This is Ted's very first tour, and I want you all to be real nice to him. Well, that afternoon she got an emergency phone call and had to fly back up to San Francisco, leaving me now in Death Valley with a group of people that all knew I was a rookie. So perhaps what you're looking at is one of the original survivors of the sink or swim method of tour directing. But I survived, and I loved it, and I did it for the rest of the year and even for part of another year. And I was going all over the United States to our national parks and up to Alaska and New England in the fall, and I was just so ecstatic about being able to see our country and being able to learn. I think people that are in this business love learning and then sharing that knowledge with other people and so on. But never thought I'd stay in it. And my family, of course, is looking at me like, what's the matter with me? Why aren't I getting a real job? And I remember I went back to dental school for a while, sort of to please my parents. And then right in the middle of that whole experience, I remember carving a tooth. They give you a piece of chalk and you carve it into a tooth. And I was pretty good at making those molars, but I remember one day I was having this conversation with myself about, what I was the next step, what I was going to do. And I said to myself as I'm carving this molar, what are you going to do with that money you make, Ted, when you become a dentist? And the obviously answer was travel. And ironically, again, that weekend, like a few days later, I got a phone call from a tour company that says, we are desperate. We need a tour director in Europe. And when I arrived in Europe, I met a whole different breed of professionally trained tour guides. And they could speak 4 or 5 languages. They could talk about history and music and art and food and politics and customs and religions and wine and everything. And to me, they were like modern day Renaissance people. And I love learning. And I think that most of the people that have, especially nowadays, that come to the school really love learning and then sharing that with other people. And I just went on to do that for the next 4 or 5 years. And then it got to the part where I wanted more balance in my life. And at that time, it's kind of hard to believe that after 5 years, I knew only one other tour director that I really was associated with, and he was just finishing up his doctoral degree at Berkeley, and his name was Bill Newton. And just as Bill got his doctoral degree, we decided to start this school. And it was wonderful. I remember the first class, we really didn't have much of a curriculum or anything like that. And after the first class, everybody got up and gave us a big ovation. And Bill and I looked at each other and said, well, that went pretty well. What do we teach tomorrow night? We didn't have anything. But little by little over the years, it's just been magnificent. And the two things that Bill and I were really adamant about was, number one, that all of the instructors at ITMI be professional, be people that are actively tour directing. The second thing, which is perhaps maybe even more important, is that Bill and I said it was really not okay to get everybody excited about becoming tour directors and there were no jobs out there. So we're putting on our thinking cap. How are we going to help these people get jobs? Well, we found that by bringing tour operators together and bringing our students together to have some incredible speakers and roundtables and talk about subjects that really relate to tour directing, we would also have an opportunity for them to interview. We call it now the marketplace, where tour operators are able to meet with the tour directors for job opportunities. And then we just have some great sightseeing experiences. We move this around the country, from Newport, Rhode Island, to Louisiana, to Hawaii, to different places, and it's been great. The most important thing about this symposium, besides the education and the interviewing and learning a new destination, without question, especially people who have been here before, they come here for the networking, to meet friends and fellow colleagues. I am absolutely humbled by the caliber of the students that come here today, and each of them is on a mission. They really are ambassadors of goodwill, and it just brings me great joy to see the joy in their eyes, in their life, to watch people who learn something or see something for the very first time and their eyes light up, and that amazing feeling of awareness and knowing what the other people on the other side of the world or on the other side of the country, how they're living, and how they think, how they dream. That's really my dream.